Welcome to Soundtrack Your Life, a podcast about soundtracks, music, and movies. Each episode features a guest and focuses on a specific soundtrack and the personal stories connected to it. Now here's your host, Ryan Pack.
I'm Ryan Pack, and this is Soundtrack Your Life. We'd like to thank you for listening, whether this is your first time or whether you're a longtime listener. And you can follow us on Instagram at SoundtrackCast and on Twitter at Soundtrack_your. You can also support the podcast by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/SoundtrackCast. We have a returning guest today. MJ from the Menage with MariJayne Maven Podcast is here. And she was the guest for our season 2 episode on Dazed and Confused. Welcome back.
Thank you so much. That was so much fun being on here, talking about one of my other favorite movies and the soundtrack. So I am so thankful for you to offer me the opportunity to come back and talk about another great soundtrack.
So for our listeners who don't know about Menage with the MariJayne Maven, why don't you let them know about that?
Yes. So Menage with the MariJayne Maven is my cannabis lifestyle wellness podcast. But it really encompasses everything about me and my brand, which is really about living your life passionately, whether that is through the power flower, which is cannabis, or whether it's just living within your true passion or purpose. Combination of all, either or combination, I'll say. It has grown from one podcast into me now hosting 4 podcasts. It's also moved into merchandise and sometime in the future. I'm not trying to put a timeline on it because I'm really, I'm kind of Aries control about like that. But coming out with some actual tangible products as well that will be based, within the brand. But we have a lot of fun. This month we're focusing on, individuals that are within the industry. Of course, Black owned businesses are very important as well. So I'll be doing a couple of highlights before this month is over, and doing collaborations and really being featured kind of as an expert speaker is something that I'm venturing into as well. So yeah, if you kind of like my energy, like the way that I present myself and my brand, then please join Menage with the MariJayne Maven. The whole brand is the MariJayne Maven lifestyle.
Very, very cool. And how can people find you on social media if they want to learn more about you?
Yes, so I think the best place, as I always say, Instagram and Twitter are like my fourth and fifth kids. So you can definitely find me there. I am on Instagram at the MariJayne, which is MariJayne Maven, and the same on Twitter. So you'll be able to find me there, or you could just ask Auntie Google. Just go ahead and type in the MariJayne Maven, and you'll be able to get to my website. You'll be able to, I like how Ryan mentioned, buy me a coffee as well. It helps us support. And I am going to be coming up with membership for, other type of content. So we will have some membership tiers that you will be able to join, support us, support the growth of my brand, and allow me to continue to educate, eradicate, and elevate. But also, just kind of get the content out there with the hope that it'll change someone's life, for the better. But you can, if like I said, if you ask Auntie Google, it'll lead you to my webpage, my pod page, the whole nine. There's so much, and we'll be like 25 minutes in by the time that I finish listing everything. So we'll just go ahead and you guys follow me there and we'll connect.
Today we're going to talk about the 2002 Curtis Hanson film 8 Mile. So why are we talking about 8 Mile today?
Oh, because 8 Mile is, it's just an aspect of the wonderful Marshall Mathers that I adore. I'll say for a lack of a better term right now. I am a hardcore fan. Stan. I probably was the first original of Eminem. I have met him twice, or been in his presence twice. Second time on his tour bus going back to the Bay Area. Besides that, I just everything that he does, everything that he says, it is still to this day, 20 plus years later, I listen to songs and I rewind it. Well, rewind it in today's sense. Go ahead and go back to listen to and to catch exactly what he said. Um, Very talented. And, I think that the way that hip hop is going and the way that it is that he's going to be someone relevant until, he's in his 60s, pretty close to 50 now, but and he's still relevant and he's still able to reinvent himself, but stay relevant, even when, you know, TikTok generation tries to cancel him. But this is a very important time. This movie came out at a super important time in my life. I was in college. We were at Davis, go Aggies. And Davis back then had shit to do, excuse my language, but nothing other than us going to like IHOP. And I'm not even sure if we had IHOP at that time. But the movie theater, parties, that's all we had to do. And when this came out, I mean, I'm telling you, everybody was in that theater. It was such a great time. And even every time I watch it, I kind of get put back within, that year and that time in my life, which was a great time.
Yeah, when this soundtrack came out, it was a monster. It sold, I believe, 700,000 copies in its first week, which I'm sure people listening today, like, that doesn't make any sense because people
Yeah.
don't buy music anymore.
Yeah.
But
They're like, wait, what does that equate to streams? I don't get it. No big deal. I mean, everything that Eminem did around that time, especially when it was selling, units, was huge. We kind of had to hook up where it was called Amoeba, right? It was Amoeba Records, right, hon? Yeah, Amoeba Records. Sorry, hubby's here, listening, producing from this side. It was Amoeba Records who would actually let us know you can come get this 2 days beforehand. Like they knew how serious hardcore fans we were, so we'd go and get back then CDs, but get them early and have all the songs, memorized by the time everybody else, got them. So I do remember getting the soundtrack early as well.
yeah, for me, I think this is maybe the last Eminem project where I bought it like the day of.
Okay.
I'm still aware of all his other work, but this is, I think, one of the last times where, I had to get there the day it came out because I was so excited about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was great. I mean, to say that I remember sitting in the movie theater. I remember, like I said, everybody was there and we were, let's say, medicating beforehand. So the seats were kind of taken up, but I remember I was like, I don't care. I will sit on the screen to be able to watch this. So we were, if I'm not mistaken, like 2 or 3 rows back. And you know how horrible that is to sit in a movie theater and watch something from, underneath the screen. That's pretty much what you're looking up at. But you couldn't tell me anything. It felt like I was in the movie. Everybody, I mean, like I said, it was, college town. So everybody that you can think of, people that we knew, everybody was there. It was funny that you heard the crack of the bottle of, a 32 or something like that. People snuck in things. We were college students. I remember smelling chicken. Like I think somebody had brought like chicken in the movie theater. But it's just, it's crazy how when you start thinking about it or when you hear the music again, at least for me, those smells come back. Kind of the stickiness under my feet, that feeling comes back. The fact that a friend and I, we were like, what up, doe, for months. And everybody was like, if you greet me like that one more time. But that it was just the influence of and that story and how great it was at the time. And to see that Eminem had this other talent. Because, I'm sure everybody thought he was going to just drop the ball. And it was going to be a horribly acted movie by another, artist or another musician. But he did a damn good job. I think everybody, Kim Basinger, I think she kind of came down on her acting just a little bit. What about me, Rabbit? Yeah, I think she brought her acting skills down just a tad. But other than that, I think it was a well acted movie, and yeah, I mean, I would love that. He says he would never do it again. He would never. He doesn't really like to talk about it, and I get it because he was deep, deep in his addiction at that time. What's crazy is that he was completely high through the whole movie, like completely. So I would like to say to him, well, imagine if you're not high and you act. Imagine that. Imagine how great, how much just Oscar worthy you would probably be. But yeah, if I manifest that I will sit down with him one day, and I won't promise that I won't ask him a question about email or call him Rabbit. So we'll see. We'll see how long that interview goes.
Obviously, Lose Yourself is the big single from the soundtrack. It won the
Mhm.
Oscar for Best Original Song. As far as movie songs go, this may be like the last big one where like everybody knows the song.
Yeah. I just say that or what Hard Out Here for a Pimp? Yeah, Hustle and Flow. I had to say that because I don't think that that is anywhere near the level of Lose Yourself. But in that instance, yeah, I do think that those were probably the last two, I would say. Because Hustle and
Yeah,
Flow came out after. Yeah, Hard Out Here for a Pimp. Yeah, that came out after 8 Mile.
that was 2005.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, okay, so just a few years later. So yeah, so within that kind of that eight, that range of years. Um, but I knew, anybody watched the Super Bowl halftime show. I knew that that was a song. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. Actually, told my husband all of the songs what that they were going to do prior to the show. Um, but I think that was it was fitting. That was a fitting song. He probably couldn't have got up there and done like Kim, you know. Hi,
Right.
my
He
name
wasn't going
is.
to do
That
Kill
probably wouldn't have
You
been his. Yeah,
or
probably wouldn't have been
Stan.
his
Like Stan
go-to.
would have been a weird choice.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, great, great, great. I doubt that he probably even thought that it was going to be something that was eligible or even considered by those that make the decisions for the Oscars. You wouldn't think that that was his fan base. Um, but yeah, it was I think a really big time. I mean, who else can say that? What other rapper that was so I want to say salacious, but he definitely got pegged as a bad guy for so long that he would have turned around very soon in his career and win an Oscar. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, you're definitely right about that. And one of the things that kind of shocked me as I rewatched the movie is, you know, the language in the movie. I
Hmm.
haven't heard a lot of those slurs used so regularly. And I know that it's, trying to channel 1995.
Yeah,
So, like I get it in the context of the film, but it was still like, "Whoa, wow."
there's a lot of stuff that I watch now, and I'm like, oh, they could never reboot this show, or make this again, not with the same verbiage, like you said. But very much, I think they did a great job at making you feel the mid '90s. Um, someone I know may have been in high school at that time. Um, and it was
A
my
couple
last
people maybe.
year, last couple of years of high school. So, hearing some of the songs and when they were at the parties and things like that, I was like, oh my gosh, like yeah, that's real talk. Like I have memories associated with that time as well, or not a situation very similar. I wasn't at an underground place doing rap battles, but house parties or kicking it somewhere that you weren't supposed to. Our thing was like more motels and things like that. But just having the soundtrack that they played for that was supposed to be 95, 96 was very fitting. A lot of movies that are supposed to be nostalgic like that, they kind of drop the ball sometime with the music that they choose. It's either too early or it was way later than the time that they're trying to, depict. So
Or they try to go like too much pop.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
Anything
I
pop.
think we need to talk about the soundtrack and then the songs that are actually in the movie because I think only like a couple of songs are actually in the 8 Mile film.
Hmm. Yeah.
Right. So obviously Lose Yourself is like the big end credits song. And then you hear the song 8 Mile as he's, writing rhymes on the bus.
Hmm. You
He's
hear
kind of
the
playing
the
that
bass
beat
line.
over and over again.
Yeah. I can hear right now. Dun, 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 dun. Yep, see? I love it. Uh, but you're right. And you see him kind of penning the song throughout the movie.
Yeah, so
You
you
just
don't hear the completed song, you just hear
yeah,
him kind of working on the song.
yeah, yeah. Which is really, I think it's very if you're an artist, if you're creative, you can relate to that. Like when he's writing and he's like, sometimes feel like and just how he's writing things down and how, Mike and how he's writing words and scratches that out and he turns the paper over and you know, it's interesting to see because part of you wonders like, is that his real process? But then another part, like I said, if you're really creative, you can relate to it.
And I think for a lot of people who just started listening to hip hop because of Eminem, like they didn't know how people wrote raps.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. At all. They had no they had no idea. And now because of social media and because people share so much, well, don't get me started on the music and things of today. It doesn't really take too much behind your process when your songs are a minute and 45 seconds. Um, but it definitely allowed people to, I think, understand him, even though it was loosely based. I'm doing quotes as you can see it, but although it was loosely based on his life, we know that it was a lot more than that. And I think that allowed people to understand him as an artist and to not be so intimidated by what it is that he was saying, what he was doing, as Eminem. It kind of allowed that, and lose yourself. I think, I mean, God, that's played it at like 9,000 games, you know, college games, professional sports games a year. I know it's a huge workout song in, like cycling classes and things like that. But yeah, the CD itself or the soundtrack itself, you definitely have to appreciate what he's doing versus like hearing it over and over and over in the movie. Knowing the songs, you're related to maybe go finding out the was it Mob Deep? No, not Mob Deep. Was it Mob Deep? Yeah.
Mobb Deep starts
Um,
off the movie.
yeah. Okay. So if you didn't know, you were, more inclined to go search and find out what that song was in that scene, Mob Deep song or whatever it may be. But yeah, like you said, the actual soundtrack, I know we listen to incessantly.
So one thing I kind of noticed as I was going back through the soundtrack and all the different songs in the movie is this is 2002. You have Mobb Deep, Jay-Z, and Nas all within this 8 Mile film. So
Yeah.
Mobb Deep's not on the soundtrack, but to kick off the movie, you have Nas and Jay-Z both on the soundtrack. And there was major beef at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It was I think that was purposely done. If I recall seeing a uh interview where that message was, you guys have fans and you made real, rap fans, all of them. Like, even though that there was, kind of beef going on at that time, nobody really focused on that beef unless you were, I think, more on the East Coast. The big, beef at that time was East Coast, West Coast. But if I recall, Eminem saying in the interview that he wanted to kind of highlight that without highlighting it because he wanted them to know how much of a fan and how much, of a lover of rap and hip hop he became because of them. But yeah, that I recently found out there was, like this huge beef that was going on.
And I think it kind of shows the power and influence that he has as an artist to get the okay from everyone to be on the soundtrack together.
Yeah, yeah. I think that that would have been a poor move if they didn't, because of, like I said, the ability to make somebody who didn't know those groups or those individuals or their music, didn't know before, they knew after. So I'm sure there was a little bit of motivation, or I'm sure that was in his pitch somewhere, is look how many more eyes and ears will be on you because of this. Um,
Right.
yeah,
That's absolutely correct.
yeah.
Because for a lot of people, they didn't really listen to hip hop yet. They just listened to Eminem.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right.
For sure.
At the time there was a huge group of people that I feel like didn't really know any rap other than Eminem.
Mhm.
And
No,
this
and
was like their gateway into, you know,
yeah. And to understanding that there was no real gangster rap, that, and then to understanding like, oh, well, I do know more than Gin and Juice by, Snoop, or let me get into more of his discography. Oh, well, shit, I didn't know that Dr. Dre produced so much and that this is his background. I know that a lot more people became a lot more informed on the history and, kind of, I don't want to say the struggles, but the history and the success that a lot of hip hop artists and especially producers, their influence. And I think that after that time, you really start having kind of super producers more in the limelight. Now that I kind of think about it, you had your Scott Storches, and you have, that came out very shortly after. You had, I mean, Pharrell like crazy. I mean,
Yeah,
Neptunes. They were doing stuff before, but
Pharrell wasn't a household name yet.
yeah, yeah. So I'm just saying that I think kind of what this helped to cultivate was a deeper understanding and respect for hip hop, and then people actually doing the research to then consider themselves or to tout themselves as true hip hop artists or true hip hop lovers. You know, now you have some people that are like, I'm a study of hip hop. I'm a student of hip hop, and you get a lot more respect from that now, especially in when we end up having Kanye a couple of years later. You know, and I mean, I wouldn't really consider them, but your Travis Scotts and things like that of today. I still don't think they probably know as much history of hip hop as they probably should, but I would say around those, early 2000s, 2000 to 2010s, it really, 10, it really allowed for people to, like I said, become comfortable with truly loving hip hop and, like I said, and showing the respect and admiration that it deserves by doing the due diligence and really finding out about the history and people that they said that they love. Like I said, I could be a little biased because I love Marshall so much, but I can say I know that's what he did for me. Like you said, I was probably one of the ones that listened to more pop hip hop, if you want to call it that, and like Tupac. That's that would have probably been my regular prior to 99 and being introduced through his very first CD, which was Ignite. But yeah, I mean, I hate to admit that I used to, listen to, well, only because it was radio, listen to Ja Rule, and he is definitely not. Definitely. So,
I was listening to a lot of, socially conscious hip hop, Tribe, and
okay.
Mos Def and Quali, a lot of the Rocket stuff.
Uh huh.
So, in a way, Eminem was kind of a bridge into the underground scene. He was kind of a bridge from the underground scene into, I guess, some of the more popular artists.
Yeah, I don't either. I'll tell you that when I got with my husband and we were in college. This is when you made mix CDs. Uh,
Hmm.
so thanks to what was it, LimeWire
Yep.
and and just and back then, if you know anything about those, you would go and like say, I'm going to download what I think is a Britney Spears song, but then it ends up being like a mix of a Jay-Z and something else. Like honestly, that's how I started getting into his discography, was by just like mistakes of downloading another song, and which wasn't my mistake because a lot of people back then used to put other songs attached to other artists. Hence I don't know if you know the Soldier Boy story, but that's how he became huge. Is that he actually put his stuff out under another artist who was big at that time.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. You said he came out with. Oh, sorry. My husband just showed me that as we're speaking. See, me and Marshall are connected. We are connected universally. He just came out with another song, like just now, a video. Yeah. He just dropped another one. So he was just,
Wow.
yeah, I know. See,
He did manifest it.
I'm telling you, it's all there. And who knows? He may be waiting for this episode to come out. He may know. That'd be crazy. I would probably lose my mind. Lose it.
So I can't talk about this movie without talking about Purple Rain because I feel like this is kind of his version of Purple Rain.
Yes. I love that you make that connection.
Because he's playing kind of. It's not really him, but it's still pretty much just
Mhm,
him.
mhm.
And he was able to shoot it mostly in Michigan.
Where he demanded, which I just learned about in the last week or so as well. I've been doing a lot of more just I know the music like the back of my hand. I know the movie. I could probably quote it, but I wanted to find out just more unknown trivia or things about it. And so I did find out that he demanded that one, he wanted the money to be put into, back into his town. He wanted to try to help jumpstart Detroit being seen as a place where you could record movies and you could film, that it was okay, it was safe, that it provided a lot of scenery and ambiance to it, a different, more, I don't want to say gritty, but it was definitely more of a gritty, worker type of town. It was definitely the 90s. So he wanted to kind of cultivate that. but that was one of the things that he demanded, was that it was recorded there. Um, because I believe they wanted to, of course, record it in some part in LA, and he, yeah. So stayed true to where he grew up, and that's great too, because I stayed true to the story, very much like Purple Rain.
Right.
You know?
Which was
Um,
shot in Minneapolis.
yeah, yeah, Lake Minnetonka. Um, I just watched that, and so this soundtrack and Purple Rain soundtrack is very funny that you say that. But my husband can attest, I've been doing nothing but listening to those two, other than just my normal, YouTube mix or whatever, my YouTube music that comes up. But if I'm like in a mood, it's back to back to back to back. Um, Deep love for both soundtracks, but it is very much, like I said, it's both are very indicative of telling their stories, without actually being named Marshall. And I know Prince's real name. I know it. I know it. I
He
know it.
was, he was just the kid in the movie.
Yeah, just the kid. But instead of him being, oh, not, gosh, why am I thinking that's not that? It's gonna come to me. It's gonna come to me. But instead of them playing, just being their real selves, um, kind of love story situation. With Marshall, it wasn't a Kim type of situation. He didn't. It was that was completely different than his personal life. R.I.P. to Brittany Murphy.
Oh, she's amazing in this movie.
Oh yes, Prince Rogers Nelson. See, I was thinking Roger Nelson, but Prince Rogers.
Oh, his real name, yeah.
Yeah,
I thought you were asking about his name in the movie.
that's great. Yeah, so he just played the kid. See, he could have just gone by Prince, but yeah. So a lot of the actors that were in that film as well. Like I said, I'm doing a little research. Um, has had a pretty well. Mekhi Phifer, Future, who was Proof, who's representing Proof. Of course, we know that he's had a good career, but a lot of the let's say the background, the background people or the supporting cast, they've been able to continue a good career for themselves, which says a lot as well. I mean, you definitely want 8 Mile on your resume.
I like Michael Shannon, who plays the
Yeah.
mom's boyfriend, Greg.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's been in everything. He was the bad guy in the first Superman movie, The Man of Steel.
Oh, see, yeah, he. I saw him recently. We saw him something in something else, and my husband started singing "Sweet Home Alabama," but the version that they made up, when they were working on the car.
Right.
With Greg Buell.
Yeah, Greg Buell.
He's an ass. He was an ass.
He was the worst.
So horrible.
Yeah, so I guess we got to talk about Anthony Mackie, right? The Falcon,
I
Captain
mean,
America
that,
2.0,
yeah, Clarence.
leaders of the free world.
Yeah, because I call him Clarence. Like if that man was right in front of me right now, I would call him Clarence, and he could say that's on my name. I'd be like, okay, Clarence. You know, you came from your parents had a real good marriage. Like I would probably be the most annoying person to meet for somebody that's in that film. Um, they would be like, "Ma'am, I've been in many other things. That is not really who I am." But yeah, he played that role. Um, he played that role well for him to not get stereotyped in that type of role throughout the rest of his career.
Yeah, he did. It,
Yeah,
it
because
was
you would
just a
think,
surprise to see him. I
it's
was like,
very
oh,
easy
yeah,
for
he's in
Hollywood
this
to
movie.
stereotype, especially a black man, and put him in the role of a gang leader. It could have just professed itself, progressed itself from there. He could have been coming, a gang leader to a drug lord to this, you know what I'm saying? They could have easily, that's all that he, was seen as. But I think the fact that, Rabbit killed him in the final rap battle, that probably helped. And I know that this is a movie and it's whatnot, but this is a very true thing that happens within Hollywood, is that people get stereotyped because of a role, and especially one that kind of jumpstarts your career. So it could have easily happened, but I think because he didn't come out as a victor, in the end, that was something that allowed him to continue to move his career forward.
Oh, interesting. Didn't really think about it that way, but that could definitely be part of it.
Yeah, I think. I mean, if
And
anybody
also
ever
that he didn't
interviews him,
actually
feel
shoot him.
free to ask that question. But yeah, I mean, because look, he's relevant 20 years later,
Oh yeah,
21
he's
years later.
globally relevant now.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I'm sure most people that are fans, they may go when 8 Mile comes on TBS or wherever it comes on, during, on if anybody still has cable, I don't know why, but if somebody's watching cable and it happens to come across, then they go, "Oh wait, oh, I never knew he was in this movie." I don't know how someone would live without not seeing this movie. My children have seen this movie many, many, many times on their own accord. Love it. No, I mean, it could be because we are just a household full of Eminem lovers here, but um, they know it. So but I could definitely see that happening where somebody just happens to stumble upon 8 Mile, never seen him before, see him in that role, but because they're fans of what he's done in later years, now they're like, "Oh wait, this is the beginning of his career," you know, and see him in another light. So, you know, I would say that it's definitely beneficial. I know that even some of the battle rappers in the film were actually battle rappers. The one What's the one that he says, "I don't understand. We don't understand you. What word you say? Hibbly hoo ha." Isn't he? Wasn't he? I'm asking my husband, but isn't he a real battle rapper? Yeah, yeah. So I think he was like really in the battle rap scene, which is huge nowadays. I don't know if you're familiar or if anybody that listens is. YouTube it. There is some super freaking talent out there, and every time I watch one, I'm like, oh, Eminem would kill. I think that that's awesome as well as that he had people that were actually in the industry, and especially at that time, in battle rap in the mid '90s, before it was even known as a thing, that he allowed them to have a role, within the film. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's like Obi Trice is a parking lot rapper.
Yeah,
Obviously, Exhibit is in the movie.
yeah,
It, he's rapping in the lunch yard with Eminem and Ms. Corona. She's the
yes,
female in that scene. But yeah, everyone that is rapping in the movie, they're
yeah,
legitimately
yeah,
battle rapping.
yeah.
I read a review of the movie, as we were researching this, and one review was like, they filmed the end battle rap scenes like you're in a boxing movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was very interesting. I mean, I definitely noticed the camera work like during the battles. Like, they're not just like standing back and watching these two people with a microphone. There's a lot of close up shots and a lot of the camera moving, and it does really feel like you're watching two people box.
Yes, and you feel like you're right there, like you feel like you're on your, court side. Especially, I noticed that too. Especially the shots where they show them rapping, but then they show the audience, and that shot, because it's so packed in there, it seems like it's going on. It's just like the room is just people just on top of people on top of people, and then you feel like you're just on like you kind of feel like you're like on stage, like you have a VIP, you know, um, view of it. But that is very interesting that you notice that because that's something that like I said, we rewatched it many times, and I think we were watching it with my son when he noticed that he was just like, "Why, why is the camera moving like that? Why don't you just stay right in front of them?" Um, so yeah, that was something that was manifested by like I believe a 10-year-old at that time is when he asked that question. But you had such good directors and DPs and things like that that were involved to make the film as well recorded and as it was. It was so much more than what was just actually happening on the screen. The the lines and the emotion that were coming from the characters. It was definitely how it was being set up and how it was shot. So, yeah, that is very true. And for someone who's rewatched those scenes, especially the battle scenes, the end battle scenes, over and over and over and over again, you definitely notice different stuff here and there. You notice, or you can hear different things. The last time I watched it, I remember turning up the volume or changing, the way that the volume comes through on the television, and you heard much more of like Cheddar Bob saying stuff, like his people saying stuff in the audience as he was going on, things that I didn't notice in the actual movie theater, which sets towards the ambiance Yeah, the girl from Making the Band was right in the front. Yeah, one of the Making the Band people. Yeah, Sarah, she's right in front. But yeah, so that's something that I really admire. Did Brian Grazer have something to do? The director of
He produced it.
he produced it. There we go. Okay, that's what it was. I was like, he was. Did he get a Did he get an Oscar nod too during this time?
Brian Grazer?
Yeah. Let's see. I'll just type in with Auntie Google here and ask really quick. Yeah, A Beautiful Mind. Yeah, no, not for this.
They were probably nominated.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah, like a nod, a nomination nod. I speak sometimes as if I'm, in the industry or work on Access Hollywood or something. Yeah. So I know that he says he was very proud of it and that he, wishes that he could convince Marshall to do a follow up. But I know one question I had for you is if you ever thought that if it needed one, like, do we need an 8 Mile 2? Do we need to see, Rabbit actually maybe get a record deal or something like that? Of course, I would love to see it just because I'm being selfish. But do you think that, I mean, of course not now, 21 years later, it could happen since everybody makes follow-ups and reboots to stuff now. But do you think that's something that would have been as big as the original?
I think it would have done well at the box office because I'm sure everyone would have wanted to see what 8 Mile 2 or whatever they would have called it. I'm sure
Yeah.
there would have been, people loved the first one, but I don't think people would be watching it 21 years later like we watch this one.
Yeah, it's like Grease and Grease 2. Like nobody likes to watch Grease 2. You don't like I was like, my
I'm
husband
not
made
saying I
said he
do, but
like. Huh?
I have some podcast friends who did a recent episode on Grease 1 and 2. Great podcast called When Cinephiles Attack.
Oh, I'm gonna have
So
to listen to
it
that.
just kind of made me laugh.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to listen to that because we've always talked about it. We're like, who likes it? And then they try to really tout it like it's just as good. Um, I know Michelle Pfeiffer, kind of started her career in that, but she should really, really get that like just scrubbed from the internet and from all of our minds. But she was it was so not good. It's so in no way possible stood up next to original Grease. I don't hear people when I go to karaoke. I've never heard anybody break out a Grease 2 song. Not once. There was no Bee Gees, ultra mix of any Grease 2 song. But there wasn't, the original Grease. So yeah. I should
You
definitely
haven't
listen to
hung
your
out with the
podcast.
cinephiles, I guess.
Yeah, I should definitely listen. I'm like very passionate about it. That is one of my all-time favorites as well. And I always wanted to play the main role when I was in theater, when I was in drama. And instead I got the role of Rizzo, and I was like, wait a minute, I am definitely much more Rizzo. Um, Still to this day, relate. My husband looks at me crazy if we watch it because I act out all her scenes, and I'm like, I just need somebody to slap because I got to slap somebody in it. But I digress. We go on. So yeah, but I like what you're saying. I think it probably would have been big just because of who Eminem was. In all likeliness, it would have come out within 3 years of when the movie came out before, and he was doing great in early 2000, 2005, 2006. Like he was still super relevant, just coming off tour and being getting ready to come out with another album. So I think it would have created some buzz, but like you said, definitely wouldn't be something that people put on. I like when we're just kind of working late night and nothing's on TV and we've YouTube down of YouTube. We are like, let's just go ahead and pop on 8 Mile. Um, so yeah, it's definitely one of those.
Well, I guess, obviously Eminem's super influential, and he's kind of like everyone calls him like the first big white rapper, right?
Hmm.
So, there's been plenty of white rappers to come on the scene after him with varying levels of success.
Hmm.
So I want to talk about Macklemore.
Oh, oh, yay!
I think this will be a So when Eminem came on the scene, like came out on Aftermath, so he had like Dre's cosign, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then when Macklemore won the Grammy for Best Rap Album, everyone was like, "Oh, is he authentic rap?" And is it because of the music, or is it because he didn't come on the scene with like a cosign? Like Mac Miller had like all these like underground LA rappers on his
Yeah.
side. Is it because of the lack of cosign, or is it because like the beats?
I think it was because, and shout out to Mac Miller because I love, 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 love him as well. But for Macklemore, I'm not gonna lie. Um, was it Thrift Shop that first came out? Great song. It was
Hmm.
like, okay, what is this? It was different. But when it became a song that was similar to like Baby Shark, when it was like a kid song, then that's when any, I'll say clout, since we're gonna speak in 2022 terms, any clout that he may have built up completely was demolished. I think it was because the material. I think it was because, yeah, the lack of somebody else in the game that already had, the influence. Um, and then I also think it was because we can't we can't knock Macklemore for not having the same swag that Eminem has. And that's because they kind of had a different upbringing. You don't, I know that he has his own story and his own battle with addiction and things like that. But Eminem coming from Detroit, from 8 Mile, and, living in a trailer park. And then you have Macklemore, who's from Seattle.
Seattle, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You don't just get people that are like, you just, it's that combination. I think it's that he had and like I said, no shame or no, nothing, no shade to Macklemore. You are who you are. You didn't have that rapper swag. You didn't have that. Mac Miller did. You know, um, it's just, it's a feeling, it's an emotion, it's an energy that you give off, and I don't think that Macklemore had that. So that, unfortunately, I think played to his detriment. I mean, you go back before that. I love me some Vanilla Ice. Loved him. I was also in sixth grade. Um,
Right.
and we didn't have we didn't have a polar opposite to compare him to. He just never really grabbed the respect of the game, period. He was more pop rap at that time, even though there wasn't one developed. He was the new kids on the block of rap.
Right.
Girls loved him. So, then you have somebody who really, really, really lived a hip hop story and who's super talented. I mean, you can't just say that, I can't just say that he was accepted or Eminem's accepted because of his background. He's accepted because he's fucking raw. He's a great, great, great lyricist. And came out doing what nobody else was doing and what nobody thought that he could do, or even a white rapper. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious because yeah, like I'm not here to like slam Macklemore,
Oh yeah, no, no.
but when that controversy came up about like, oh, well, is he really rap? And I was like, what he's doing is rapping.
Yeah, yeah,
Like that's
yeah,
not a question.
yeah,
And they're like, oh, is he like authentic? I was like, he's not like. It's not like they raised him in in a lab, or
yeah.
like they created
Right.
him in a test tube. Like he's just some guy from Seattle who raps.
Yeah,
But
who has that creativity. He has that interest, he has that drive. I mean, it's very similar to, back in the day, people saying that Fresh Prince wasn't really rap because he was happy and because he didn't curse. Um, Big deal about him winning the first Grammy for rap. People thought that it should have been at that time an NWA or, somebody like that, because that's what was prevalent and what defined hip hop. So kind of that same thing, Macklemore had his impact that he needed to have because he did have some great songs that told great stories. And I think that he had his place within hip hop at the time. Now, will he ever get a hip hop, Hall of Fame nominee? Probably not. But if you look back over hip hop, and then if you look back over white rappers in hip hop, he does have a place. He will be, next to the Yellow Wolves, and um, who also had Eminem's kind of cosign, but still he didn't go as far as what you would think that, he would, as having Eminem's cosign. I can't stand Logic, but Logic was good at the time for a little bit. Suicide Squad song was his probably best thing that he's ever done. Other than that, he whined so much. Um, yeah, I think Mac Miller's probably would have been the next well respected um, white rapper in the industry. Well, not even seen as a white rapper, but as a rapper, because he truly had that talent. But unfortunately, we lost him as well.
Yeah, those
Um,
last two records are amazing.
so good, so good. I over pandemic, let's just say I played self care a lot. My neighbors were probably like, "Good Lord, is she okay over there?" A lot, but I love how vulnerable he is, and he was on his music. Very similar to Marshall. Very.
Yeah, like a different energy, but
Yeah, yeah,
very open.
yeah. I just think, like I said this the other day. I follow Haley, love her to death. Her and my son are just a little bit. My son's like just about a year or two younger than her. I feel like they grew up together, and he's like, "Mom, I don't know her. We realize we don't know her, right?" But following her and seeing her growth and seeing her still going to college and making her own way for herself and everything. But I'm just like, how dope is that to be like, Eminem's my dad. Eminem's my dad, and then to really have an understanding of who he is, because if you listen to his music, you know who he is. You understand the mistakes that he made when you were younger, and then who he is now. Um, I think that's really, really dope. So, if Mac Miller had a child and and he still passed, that child would at least have his discography to get a better understanding of who he was and what he was going through. It's definitely a journal of their life. So I think that's pretty cool.
And Eminem just recently helped his mom open a spaghetti stand.
I cannot wait for that to be. I mean, I wanted to go to LA this weekend just for two things. One, there's something in the cannabis industry. It was called the Black Box that was being put out by women who opened the first Black woman, and they were actually backed by JC, Josephine, and Billy. So if you guys are in LA anywhere, go check them out. They have a speakeasy, lounge, and a dispensary, but they put together a very I want to say the upper echelon of Black cannabis owners, and they all put together into a box, um, that some of that is going towards equity and going towards other organizations within the industry. But it was a box that you go and purchase, and so I wanted to go get one of those, and I wanted to go to the pop up of Mom Spaghetti, and I told my husband if we got down there, I was getting all three things because there was only three things on the no four things on the menu that they were having, but yeah, I mean, I've bought every single magazine he's been on and had them laminated. Um, whatever he puts out, if it's his 20 year of an album and he puts a special one out and has clothes with it or whatever, I'm like, I'm on it. I'm one of those. Like, I'll be one of those people in a few years that they'd be like, the woman with the biggest M&M collection, and like I have a full bedroom. That's just nothing. But yeah, I would love for that to be franchised. Yeah, that's like the pop-up of the Saved by the Bell when they had the Max. I was obsessed with it for a very long time. And this
I
place is my new
remember that.
obsession. So, and it's actually pretty good from what I hear. And I think that's also that because so many people want to tout on how he talked about his mother. So many people. And it's like, how many of us have just been at our parents' throats or been at each other's throats in our lifetime and have thought or said things, maybe not to the extent of what he said artistically, but how many of us, and especially at a time in our lives in our 20s to 30s, that we just did not check for our parents? Like, they don't know what they were talking about. You know, those people that aren't that accountable yet, you put your shortcomings and things like that on your upbringing and on your parents. But he's almost 50 years old now, and they have a better relationship. And I'm sure she gets a nice check from him to take care of herself every month. Um, I'm sure she's over you know, they're over the things that they did to each other because let's not forget she tried to sue him.
Right.
Um, so, but I think that's dope that he is, he doesn't drink. So he's of course not going to come out with his own tequila. He doesn't smoke anymore, so he's not going to jump into his own cannabis brand. Or if he does, we won't know. He'll be a very, very, very quiet investor. So, what's not bad? I don't know who took the idea to him, but that's genius. Mom Spaghetti restaurant. Genius.
It is the legacy of 8 Mile, Mom
Yeah,
Spaghetti.
yeah, yeah. So I wonder if it's going to turn into a larger thing because I could see like 8 Mile, like a diner, like an 8 Mile diner. Just a sign that I visualize alone from the album cover. That neon sign that says 8 Mile, the trailer park. I could totally see that as like a restaurant too. Um, hey, maybe I should get to him with that idea. An 8 Mile, not really trailer park themed, but an 8 Mile, kind of truck stop, kind of you know, little diner. I'm thinking of Alice, the old TV show. I'm really dating myself, but like a diner like that. That'd be kind of cool.
I do love that he showed up at the grand opening and like
Yeah,
served like the first 10 customers or something.
yeah, yeah. Like popped his face out the window, and people were like shocked as hell. I probably would have fainted. Probably, even though I've already met him twice. I've been in his existence, like presence, existence, everything. Felt his energy, breathed in the same air. That was also 20 years ago. So I probably, my husband probably like, I'm so sorry. She's it's a little crazy for you. I mean, I used to wear a ring when I met my husband. I say that I was married. I will never forget his frat brother met me the first time, and when I left, he told him like, "She's cool, but bro, she's married." And my husband's like, "She's not. She's talking about that she's married to Eminem." And everybody, I remember they're like, "So is she okay? Is she all there?" And he's like, "No, she's just a super duper fan." But yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I know that it made a lot of money, or it did very well because of Super Bowl. And him being there for the halftime show. So his little pop up did great.
Back to the Super Bowl halftime show. I do like that he did like a kneel to end Lose
Hmm.
Yourself.
Yeah.
And he probably like told like Snoop and Dre like, if I do it, what's the NFL gonna do? Because
Hmm.
I'm white.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought about that. I said, I wonder if, they threw a fit, because of media is media. I think a lot of stuff is made up. They're saying that they told him not to do it. And Drake came out and he's like, no, nothing like that happened. Like they actually changed some things to allow us to do whatever we wanted to do. It was more of a negotiation because you have to admit there was probably a lot of people that turned their TVs off for that 30 minutes because it was all hip hop, you know, um, halftime show. So there was probably some that were just not pleased with that. But I do know that in order for them to make that deal, Dre is not. They're not. Well, first of all, they don't get paid, so it's not like any of them are hard up for the exposure or the money. Any of them. So the fact that there had to be a I don't want to say a mediation, but there had to be some type of agreement from each side, and some there had to be a little give and take on each side. But the fact that they got it done is fantastic. I love that he kneeled. Some people were like, "Oh no, he's kneeling because of Pac," and we're like, "No, you don't kneel because of a rapper who's passed away. Do you guys not remember what the kneeling's for?" I mean, he made it very clear, like in his freestyle that he did, his BET freestyle that he did in 2017, where he just completely tore up Trump and any survivor, any supporter of Trump. He's made his thoughts known. He's not very shy about it. So, I mean, I was geeking out during the whole time, just geeking out and recording it and everything. But I noticed that, and I thought that said a lot. He one of the things, like I said, that I respect about him is that he doesn't hold his tongue. And now that he is almost a 50-year-old man, he sees things differently than when he was, 25. Um, he was talking about Christina Aguilera and NSYNC and things like that. Like it's so far from that. So it's nice to see that. And it's nice to see that he hasn't forgotten. And even though he was performing at the Super Bowl, he was also letting his position be known and where his support was. So I thought that was I thought that was awesome. And now I saw today how Eminem became the new leader of the Black Lives Matter movement. And I was like, really? Ooh, yeah, I don't think that was his goal, you
No.
know. But it says a lot. I mean, a week later and people are still talking about it. One thing is I noticed is that he doesn't really perform. He doesn't go on tour in the United States. He only goes on tour like across seas because or overseas because he feels like there's less temptation and things like that over there. But I'm wondering how anxiety filled and how anxious he was because that was a lot of people to perform in front of. a lot just within that stadium. So I'm wondering if he, felt any kind of anything that he used to feel before, which is part of the reason why he would medicate and not medicate with the good plant, but with other stuff. So I'm wondering if that's still a struggle for him or if he was okay with it, if he was just focused. I know it was a great performance with Anderson Paak and the live music. I think that added something different to it. It
Yep.
made it even more powerful of a performance.
Yeah, it was great. It's one of the few halftime shows where you wish it was longer.
Yeah, yeah, really. I put it in Michael Jackson, you know, still, Janet and Justin when she got her boob shown, um, NSYNC and Aerosmith, and then this one. I would say those are the best halftime shows performances to me. But I felt like they could have done, another song each.
Right.
They could have, but it was great. Mary J. Blige looked great. It was awesome to see Kendrick Lamar because you don't, he's taking his break and like he wants to, so you don't really see too much of him. So it was nice to see him. It was
And he
nice to see
brought
the
it.
choreography. It was nice to see, the dancers sea walking, with Snoop. It was awesome to see. I don't know if you saw the clip of Snoop, like right before he went on stage, he was medicating. He was like right off the right off the stage on the field in his little box, and he was getting nice and elevated for his performance. And I think that says a lot about our times too, because I think if that had been something that happened, you know, 10, 15 years ago, that would be the headline. Snoop caught smoking before his performance. But now it's just very tongue in cheek and people are laughing about it. And, he didn't have any misstep in his performance. Um, but yeah, I think it's what we needed to kind of come out of this funky past 2 years that we've had. I know it's very minute, but it's very minute things like that actually, can kind of help bring people back together and bring some different energy into the universe.
Sure. So, is Prince not in your top 5 Super Bowl performers?
Oh, my husband just looked at me. He just looked at me and said, "You guys said the same thing at the same time." Did I name five? Let's see: Janet, Michael, Aerosmith. Okay, so he would be my fifth. I named four. So yes, so he would be in the five as well. Yep. There you go.
When you exit the Paisley Park tour, they drop you into a room where you can just watch the Super Bowl halftime show that Prince did on loop.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And you just, yeah, you just got me just like mind blown. Uh, just can you imagine though if the performance had been provided through like virtual reality or the metaverse as they're calling it now? That would have been pretty crazy. I know. Yeah, you just got my mind going. I'm like, ooh, can I watch Purple Rain? Could I watch him before the Purple Rain soundtrack when I write it? That would be awesome.
For me, you can't beat him playing that song and then it raining in real
I
life.
right, you know. Um, that's because he was just, I don't want to say he's a sorcerer, but he's just great. I mean, I listened to Purple Rain and just to make this really quick, but I don't think people can respect like what he was saying, like in Computer Blue. Just the setup of the whole playlist, the whole soundtrack. It tells a story. It's kind of like watching a opera. Um, and I mean that's just kind of the way that that I see it and that I admire it. And I just don't think that people really understand. I know there's some people who really like when he passed away because I mean huge, we're a music household. My boys knew who he was. They knew how big of like a loss that it was. And when my oldest went to school and said something about it, his peers were like, "Who? What? I don't know that." Like it's very sad that I'm like there's some individuals that don't have the blessing of knowing Prince's music or even just Purple Rain like in their lives.
Yeah.
Um Now, mind you, I probably shouldn't have been watching Purple Rain at 10, 11 years old. I was. But now that I look back on it, I'm like, oh, why? I see why my parents were like, cover your eyes at certain parts. Not that I did, I covered and then peeked. But yeah, he he we've lost a lot of musical talent, recently. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. Um, well, Thank you, MJ, for being on the podcast again.
No problem. It is always a pleasure. I mean, I feel like once we get on, the time you've been on mine and the couple times that I've been on your podcast, we're just talking like old friends who haven't talked in a bit, and get on the subject, and then we're talking about music. Just like I said before, I love your platform because music is such a huge part of everyday existence. If there was no music, there would be no life. Um, you've actually motivated me to come up with a merchandise line, which is going to be a graphic T-shirt line called Music and Mary Jane, and it's going to just be quotes of songs that I love, like and the artists that said them. And it's kind of like I said, motivation from the last time I was on your podcast, and because I like to do everything at once, I'm just kind of planning it slowly. So that will be coming out. But what your show, what your podcast does, I think, like I said, for those that are music lovers and or people that maybe don't even realize how much music, movies, and that actually plays into your best memories. You do a great job at facilitating, that those emotions. So
Well, thank you.
thank you so much. Um, it's always a pleasure to be able to come on and talk like I love to do, but especially when it has to do with, great movies like 8 Mile and the soundtrack to it. So I really do appreciate you.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we were able to bring you back. And
Mhm.
if my listeners want to learn more about your platform, why don't you give a plug for your social media again?
Yes. So at the Mary Jane Maven, and that is TheMariJayne, Maven, Maven. Go ahead and you find me on social media. That's going to be my Instagram and my Twitter. If you go to my Instagram, you're going to be able to find the links to my website, to my pod page, and to some other platforms where you'll be able to find me. I am also the host of 4 total podcasts. So if you do follow me or contact me through one of the venues, Instagram, Twitter, you'll be able to find out the other podcast. If you're a lover of the Boondocks, I am one third of a panel of women who we review the podcast, each episode each week. I do have a more of adult podcast between my husband and I, called Soulmates and Swingers. And then I have a podcast with a couple other women, and it's called Don't Talk, Just Listen. And it's a women's wellness podcast where I kind of tell you why you don't have a man. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's just a great conversation between girlfriends, and it's from women to other women, women that's been where you're trying to go. So we want to help you get to where you're trying to go. So those are the 4 different episode podcasts that I have, and then like I said, you can find me through Instagram, Twitter, and just ask good old Auntie Google.
So give MJ a follow. And if you want to follow us, we are at SoundtrackCast on Instagram and at soundtrack_your on Twitter. And we are at buymeacoffee.com/soundtrackcast if you'd like to contribute to the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you once again. Good night, everyone.
Thanks for joining us this week on Soundtrack Your Life. Make sure to visit our website, soundtrackyourlife.net, where you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too.